Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all smashing it. So today, finally going to be getting on. We're getting all this fitted to the e91. So as we've touched on before, we've got the DPF delete, we've got the EGR delete, and we've also got the swirl flap delete for it. So first of all, what I'm going to do is get all this top covering off. We'll tackle the swirl flaps first. Now these ones, I believe they are for the m57 T2 engine with a 22mm. So I've got all of them. As I've said before, these were about 22 quid. Came with a gasket, but for that price, I am not going to be using them gaskets. So we've bought a full set of BMW gaskets. Now they were 80 quid. Obviously a lot more expensive than them with the swirl flaps. So that's why I'm using them. We've got the darkside developments downpipe. Now that's a 3-inch going with a reducer going into your standard exhaust. That came with all the clamps, all the gaskets, so we'll be getting that fitted as well. And we've got the EGR delete for it. Now obviously this has got the anti-shudder valve, so that's the one you want. Obviously that bolts onto your inlet, anti-shudder valve goes on there. Now I've got that one off eBay, a lot cheaper than darkside, pretty good quality. That also came with all the gaskets, all the relevant exhaust blanks, bolts, everything you need. And also came with all your water blanks, and this one's also got like a bleed nipple in it, so pretty good that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to crack on. We're going to get all this off, get the inlet off. Hopefully I can get that soaked overnight, the inlet that is, get it cleaned, blanks back on, get all that back on tomorrow. Then we can tackle the EGR and then finally the DPF. So let's crack on with it. So first of all, we're going to be removing the 5mm Allen key bolts. That'll get this cover off, allows access to all the bolts and everything we need under here. Obviously this just pulls forwards, that gives you access to the 2 back bolts. Then we've got a load of 8mm bolts for the pollen filter housing and also this shroud. As I say, we'll have to take all that off, so we'll crack on with that first. Just putting all the bolts back in where we can, so we don't forget where they came from, and we know it's nice and safe. So any ones we can't put back in are probably going to go in a little jam jar, or I have got a magnetic tray but it's full of nuts and bolts, so just get these back in for now. So next we're going to remove these 2 brace bars. Now last time I did this I didn't have the correct sockets, but now I do. So this one is an E14 like star type socket, and the one at the back there is an E18 like star socket. Now this one the 2 bars just slide into, so it's just a case of slackening that off. Don't have to remove it completely, and then these 2 will just slide out from under there, and obviously these 2 got to remove fully. So now we've got most of the covers removed. Obviously if you look around the inlet, obviously we're going to have to remove all your inlet bolts. So we'll get those out across the top, and then you've got your ones on the inside, so we'll get all them removed. Obviously the EGR needs to come off. Obviously this is what it looks like with the anti-shudder valve. So that's your anti-shudder valve on the side. Bolts on with 3 bolts there, then you've got your Allen keys there. Also got a couple of bolts. I think it's a 10mm bolt there. We've got one at the back down there holding those brackets on. You've got these 2 connectors, one there and there's one at the back just there. And I think there's a couple of vacuum lines underneath. But obviously we'll tackle that while we're getting the inlet off. So I'll just crack on with it for now. Now you will have seen me struggling taking this back cover off, and obviously not really having access to that bolt. So basically where the brace bar comes in, this cover does actually come down. I'd forgotten about this. There's 2 10mm bolts, one on either side. That will just kind of rock forwards and pop down. He says, just push it off to the side and that will come out. Now that gives you a lot better access to that back bolt on the inlet. Probably help the inlet come off, and certainly will help putting the back cover back on. Now these are 10mm bolts, like I said, but the ones down there are actually an 11mm bolt. So we get it right. Now be quite careful with these ones. For some reason they've actually used nuts. So I have actually got a magnet somewhere and I will be using it. So these are actually captive, so you won't lose them ones like you could do with the nuts. So that's it, the inlet is off. I'll just try and show you that. So we've got a bit of oil. These are your actual swirl flaps that will be blanking off. Yeah, at least that's off. So give this inlet a good clean, should do it the world of good. So now one thing I am going to do, I'm just getting a little bit of tissue in all of these. That way I know I'm not going to get any muck in them. And then we can look at tackling the glow plugs and cleaning the inlets. So we'll just bung them up. I don't want anything getting in them, dropping anything in them. So this one we're going to have a go at tackling the glow plugs next. So I'm just going to give him a quick blast off with some grease agent. We'll leave them for a good while, and then hopefully if we give them a little bit of a tighten and then loosen them, hopefully those are going to come off quite easily. Fingers crossed. So now we're going to have a go at removing the glow plugs. Now first of all, a little trick with these, be very gentle. Just have a quick go at tightening them, don't apply much pressure. So that's just gone a little bit. So let's see if we can loosen this now. There we go. So that is coming out. So I'm going to do the rest of these. I'm not going to film them all because it gets a bit boring, but you get the general idea. So that is one of them. Now what ones are these? Are these are actually look to be the standard glow plugs from factory. So I hope I'm not going to get a problem getting the rest of them out, but we'll see. Now I don't know whether this will show on camera, but I was getting a few glow plug issues. Now I thought it might have been the glow plug module, it still could be, but obviously if you can see, that is a new glow plug which is nice and clean. Now this is one of the old ones which actually looks like the end. It's got quite a bit of scoring on it. So we've replaced all 5, no issues, so I'm probably jinxing myself. But let's have a go at the last one. So like before, we'll have a quick go at tightening. Ooh, I think I'll just jinx myself here. Nope, that's just had a little nip up. So we'll see if we can undo it. There we go. Now obviously be careful undoing it because you can get a build up of soot. But this looks to be going pretty well. There we go, last one. So I'll just show you what all these spark plugs look like against the new ones. So spot the difference. So these are all the old plugs as I've pulled them out from the front of the engine right the way through to the back. Now this one's got a bit oily, but as you can see, the ends of these, I don't know whether that'll show, they're not actually smooth, and they've got this like abrasive scoring on the end. Now I presume that's heat, so you can see this on that one, got it on that one, same on that, same on that, and that one just looks quite sooted up. So that's the new one. So we'll get this one back in, finally the last one, but they look a lot nicer, a lot cleaner. Now you can actually see on these, I think these are the original ones. I don't know whether you can read that or it's focusing. So you've got Germany on there. So these plugs are probably covered 190 odd thousand miles, so not doing too bad, and let's hope these will do the same. So because it'd be rude not to, we're also going to be changing the filter on this. Obviously we're going to put a pipercross on like we have done on the rest of the cars. So I'm just going to remove all this. Obviously that's your 3 5mm Allen key bolts, and then you've got 1 2 3 E11 star sockets. So we'll get them off, get the filter out, and then we can have a look at changing the swirl flaps and getting this all back together. slightly smaller socket for this one. That needed a clean. Should have done that while I did the oil. So we'll get the pipercross filter in. Now obviously, like with all the other cars, gone for these because they're a dry oil filter. No danger of it damaging the air mass, and they're supposed to be a lifetime filter. Obviously there's conflicting opinions about pipercross. Some people say they disintegrate, so I will be keeping an eye on these and keeping you guys updated. But as they're on the rest of the cars, we'll keep up with a bit of continuity and get this fitted on. So, it's quite tight, that one, but that's on, so we'll get the covers back on. So now we're at the stage of removing the actual swirl flaps. Now these are them, one on each cylinder, and obviously they're operated by a vacuum, which is that. Now they open and close, obviously depending on low revs, whether you need low end torque or high end torque, but as we're getting this mapped, shouldn't need that. Now these seem to operate quite smoothly, but they are quite gunged up. So as a quick recap, obviously we've taken the inlet off. You can see that in the previous video. Now I finished work at, what time was it? It was about 20 to 5. Got home about 10 to 5. It is now 6:30. So what, about an hour and a half. Inlet's off, air filter's changed. So I'm going to get these all removed tonight. We're going to give the inlet a bit of a soak, because it is a bit gunked up, mainly because of probably the EGR and the mileage on it. So get this all cleaned up, get these removed, get it all refitted tomorrow. Then we can turn our attention to the DPF and actually removing the EGR valve and getting the blank on. Then we're at the stage of getting it remapped, getting that mapped out, DPF mapped out, stage 1 tune, and see what she goes like. So with removing the actual swirl flaps, it's a T20 Torx bit, and just got a couple of bolts to remove. So first of all, I'm going to remove the actual vacuum pump. Now this will allow me to remove the shaft and get access to all the lower bolts on the swirl flaps. So there we go, that is your swirl flap removed. Now looking at that, definitely I've got it wrong again. That is the larger, what was it, 32, 33mm swirl flap blanks. So as you can see, they are quite gunked up. They're moving freely, but there is quite a lot of gunk on that. So I'm going to be happy to get this EGR replaced and those removed. So I'm going to get this clean, probably soak it in degreaser. I'll probably jet wash it out tomorrow, but I'm certainly going to remove the map sensor. I'll get the EGR off and we'll get this soaking tonight. I won't film all that because it's just simply a case of cleaning. All I'm going to do is stick it in a large bucket, get some gunk in it, swill it all around, let it sit overnight, and then I'll get the jet wash in there, obviously making sure there's no sensors or anything like that. Just try and blast 90% of the crap out. Then obviously we can get the swirl flaps back in and get it back on the car. So the inlet's had an overnight soak. I've given it a bit of a scrub. As you can see, it's been soaking overnight. So I'm going to give this a jet wash. Then hopefully we can look at starting to rebuild it all. So the next step with this, obviously I've just given the inlet a clean. So I'm letting that dry off, is to remove the anti-shudder valve. Now, I just want to go through why I hate EGRs. I mean, look at all that gunk that's in there. That can't be good. So we're going to be removing this section. It's just three, let me get that right, T27 Torx bits. Get them removed and we'll get it bolted up to the EGR blank. So with reassembling, obviously the EGR blank, I am going to be reusing the old gasket, the old rubber seal that was on the anti-shudder valve. Now, obviously what I've done with this is I've just soaked it in some boiling water and a bit of soapy, well, boiling soapy water. So that should bring it back a little bit better. But just in case this servicing isn't perfect, I will also be using just a little bit of gasket sealer. Just to help it seal and make sure I get no leaks when it's back together. So now we're going to look at removing the actual EGR cooler itself. Now, in order to do that, I've taken these top cowlings off to get a bit more access. I'm going to remove the fan. So we've just unclipped that from there. I'm just going to take the screw out from this side, T27, and there's like just a little clip that you slide to the side there. This should just slide out. So that's given us a lot better access. So got a couple of bolts to unbolt the actual cooler from the bracket. Then we'll remove this, which is just little Jubilee clip on there. Same as that type, just looks like that. So we'll get that little bit of pipe off. That'll allow us access to some of the bolts under there. We've got two here, two there. And then once that's loose, I can actually look at tackling removing it from the exhaust side and getting the blank on. Now, in order to do that, I think I'm going to have to take the inlet pipe off, but I'm going to have a quick go and see if I can do it without removing that as well. One thing I have just done is I've just removed that pipe off the top of the EGR cooler. Now obviously you can see the normal bleed nipples at the top, so obviously we replaced the one with the bleed nipple with that. Dead simple, just pops into it and put the Jubilee clip on. Now we're going to have a go at removing these two bolts. Now these are both 6mm Allen bolts, which will just take this off, release the top part of the EGR cooler off the bracket. So I've just had a quick look, and basically it's a T40, the two bolts that hold the EGR onto the exhaust manifold. Now you can just about get to the bottom one with a small extension, but the top one, I think we're just going to have to loosen this off and just move it slightly over to the side, and that should give us the access we need. So now we're just going to use the gasket supplied and get the EGR blank refitted. Place this bolt and get the inlet back on. So that's all done, inlet's back on. We've got our two blanks on the EGR cooler, on the blank on the exhaust side. So also with the cooler, coming with a nice little blank. Now all that does is fit into the vacuum that went through into the actual EGR valve. So just blank that up. I'll just tie that away somewhere, nicely out the way. But let's get the fan and everything back in. So now we've got the inlet clean. Obviously just made sure all the inside area where the swirl flaps are going are nice and clean. So I'm just going to pop all these in, get the bolts in, and then hopefully we can start getting this inlet back on. So we've got the inlet fully sorted now. EGR's been bolted back on, and we've got all the relevant gaskets in. So I'm just going to flip this over now. So as you look at the inlet, all these top bolts, these ones here, are 8 Newton meters, and the slightly large, well, they're 10 mil, and the slightly larger 11 mil, they are 13 Newton meters. So I'm going to get this bolted back on the car. One thing it is worth noting is the actual swirl flap. I've just blanked, well, swirl flap vacuum pump. I've just blanked that off with a nut. Obviously, I've made sure the one for the EGR vacuum, that's blanked up with the handy little blank provided. Now, what I have also done is I've actually undone this. So you've got a 13 mil bolt, and it's just a push fit on the vacuum for the servo, just to get that out of the way, which should make getting the inlet on a lot easier. So in this video, obviously we've removed the EGR cooler, blanked off the EGR on the inlet, and we've removed the swirl flaps and blanked them off, as well as doing the glow plugs and replacing the filter. So I'm going to leave it at that with this video. Obviously the next video we're going to be fitting this, the darkside DPF downpipe delete. Now, as I've mentioned before, that's a 3-inch into with a reducer on the end for your standard exhaust. So I'm going to get that fitted, and then we'll get the car mapped and see what she's like. So hope you like the video, hope you're liking the content. We'll catch you in the next one. As always, remember, like and subscribe, and we'll see you later.